We are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with me, with God's help and so much amazing tech stuff, is Rivka Malka Perlman. And we are going to be talking about masculine and feminine, how to love, and especially in marriage. So, first, introduce yourself. Let's get into it, and then we'll get right into the good stuff.
Awesome. Hi, Bat-Chen. Good morning over here. Good afternoon over there. Hi, everyone who's out there. I'm super happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me to talk about one of my favorite subjects. And for those of you who I'm just meeting now, I am Rivka Malka. I live in Baltimore. My heart is in Eretz Yisrael, and I tend to be deep in the healing work of becoming your greatest self. So to that end, I run a coaching school where we train and certify women in transformation life coaching. And I also, in a parallel life, teach intimacy and marriage classes along with my very special sister, Devorah Barusan. So today we're focusing on that part, but when we teach, it always like overlaps the inner healing and the relationship stuff.
Yes, totally. I don't know if you could talk about anything without overlapping with anything else. And that's how this podcast started, right? Because I'm like, okay, let me get on, and talk to anyone who has any topic. And then how does that affect marriage? And it always worked so well, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're decluttering is going to affect your marriage. And it doesn't matter if you're, time management or if whatever. Everybody's specialty is always going to have to touch how it affects marriage. So, this is really fun. Whew. So let's get into it because there is a lot of questions. There are a lot of things that are coming up. What comes up for you when you think of love and marriage and intimacy and all that stuff?
Good question. A few things. This is my gut reaction, okay? When it comes to love, marriage, and intimacy, the first thing I think of is how much of our happiness depends on our shalom bias. Like on any given day, you can have a lot of money, you can have great clothes, your kids could be doing okay, but if your marriage is not in great shape, you're not so happy. You do not feel good. So the thank you for the work that you're doing because it's top tier. If a person is married, this is top tier to their well-being. It's core. So that's the first thing, just bringing awareness to that. Like this is worth investing in. This is your life.
Yes. Yes. And I
Mm,
also find that when your marriage is great, everything else could be in shambles, but it's fine because we're in it together. And if your marriage is a total mess and it's not really aligned and something doesn't feel right, then everything else falls short, right? Like the parenting doesn't feel right anyway. Everything gets in the way, and the money, and there's never enough, and the career is stuck, and whatever. Like everything ends up being a real tangled mess of a mess, right?
nice.
So it's so, so important. And that's why, by the way, that's why I picked marriage. Because when my coach asked me, what is the one thing that if a person fixes, everything else will fall into place? And I was like, their marriage. Like
Wow, amazing.
100%.
Hmm.
Because even parenting, even parenting is affected by your marriage, right? And if you put your marriage first and you focus on that, your kids will thrive and it will be so much easier to parent. And that's about everything else too. It's just
Yeah.
such a powerful place to start.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love that you brought it to the flip side. Like when you are doing well together, everything's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The second place where I'm focusing, I'm thinking about three places. So the second place that jumps out at me is that I have found personally a lot of happiness and happy moments in my marriage through the use of gratitude. So we get used to the state of our life, whether it's I have a car, I have a husband, I have a house. These things are luxuries on top of luxuries. There are things that people pray for, yearn for, wish for. So, when I can tap into that feeling and I try to, to pause and say, whoa, I'm married. Do you understand what that means? That's not for granted. This is a special place that Hashem put me in this life. And for other people who are not married, I feel certain that Hashem will fill up their love tanks in the most incredible way as only He can. But there's no question that it comes with a certain amount of pain and or loneliness. So just having an attitude of gratitude within my daily life in marriage has shifted moments that could have even been triggers, because couples will naturally trigger each other all day long. That's life. And we could
You
talk more
mean
about
you're
why
normal too?
this is life. This is how you like become one, is you keep on like, yeah, it's that yeah, it's that triggering. It's amazing. Like you love this person the most, and therefore every nuance you're gonna feel the most. It's fascinating, Hashem. It's fascinating. So anyway,
Yes,
um,
I just want to
yeah.
double tap here because most people suffer the most by feeling that they are the only ones going through this. And it is so painful to think everyone else has got it right. Everyone else has a perfect marriage. Everyone else sort of figured it out, and there's something wrong with me. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so open about us being human and my relationship with my husband. And I think that it's really important for us to normalize the fact that we're all human, imperfect as we are. We are exactly where we need to be, and we're all working towards improving. And it's amazing, right? It's amazing that as soon as you can get out of that like fuzz of everybody else is like filtered and perfect and just like, has that airbrush look to them, and just be like, no, 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 honey, everybody's the same. We're all dealing with the same
Yeah.
things behind closed doors. And it's just really important to validate that.
Okay, yeah. And please may I add, not just validate, but to understand marriage. There's this line that says, if someone tells you they're working on their marriage, that doesn't mean they have a bad marriage. If they say they're not working on their marriage, that's a bad marriage. So like
Ooh, I love that.
marriage is the daily work of like rising up beyond yourself, and then you get to taste some connection, and then you're a human, so you go back to yourself, and then you're reaching beyond yourself. I want to understand him. I want to know where he's coming from. I want to see why he said that. I want to see what he needs, and you get it, and then you're back to the dishes. So it's juicy when it's a juicy adventure of, in Hebrew we call it avodas amidos. In English that means like character refinement, becoming the best version of yourself, is to get to know your other half. And it's a daily, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I want to, you said something like when we're so close and we love someone so much, then all the nuances are so much more enlarged. And I think of the mirror, right? So God created the world with all these mirrors around us so that we can see ourselves, because we can't see ourselves any other way. And so we see someone is impatient, and we see someone is selfish, and we see someone who is beautiful, and we see someone who we look up to. And all these things are just reflections of what we have inside, right? Because you'll never see it if you don't have it. You're incapable of seeing anything good or bad if you don't have it yourself. So I look at the husband as like that gigantic mirror that makes everything bigger, right? When you're like looking at your pores or your wrinkles, or you're trying to like do something there, like it is so much bigger and more enlarged, that work that you have to do within yourself, because it's so clear, it's so close, it's so intimate. And that's really where the real work, can
Mhm.
happen.
Wow, that is fascinating. I would love to share a story with you. It just happened yesterday. So 2 nights ago, I was having a conversation with my husband about a program and our staff, and something that wasn't clear, and was a staff member like concerned about it. And he loves when things run smoothly. He's amazing at making things run smoothly. So I knew it would not be pleasant for him to hear that there was like a little bit of questions about how something was running, but I wanted to keep him in the loop. And it ended up, but it was like the kind of thing that it would be okay. A staff member just wanted to say, I'm really concerned about this. Okay, we fixed the concern. So it was actually great. I feel good when my staff knows that they can bring their opinions to me and I can respect them. So we ended up in this conversation, which is a very old conversation with us, which is about like the difference between my free spirit flow mechanisms and his on top of it mechanisms. And he said something like, whatever, I don't know what he said, but I said, I don't feel bad anymore about this topic because I work on myself. I have worked on myself to learn teamwork, to be timely, to get things done in an orderly way. None of it is natural for me. Me and my sister, we're both free spirits. We're laughing. We're like, we are trained puppies. That's it. I will regress back into my artist self and forget being a professional. It'll take about 2 days. But for I'm not joking, but for now, like I show up to my classes on time. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm laughing because I'm the same way. In my
really,
podcast about 100 episodes, I'm like, you guys, I have no idea how I got here. I'm the least organized, the
yes,
least consistent. I don't know. I'm an artist. I'm
gosh.
creative. I go with the
Don't
flow.
say the word consistent. Don't make me look at that word.
Uh,
It's a training. That's why I call it a Midas training. But what I wanted to tell you, if I may, just two things about this. I was explaining to him and also thinking about how I learned these new ways of being from him, and it has enriched our relationship tremendously to have the understanding that your partner is your teacher. Hashem put you with this one person. I mean, you have the most access to them, the most visuals of them, the most exposure to their habits. They're your Midos teacher, they're your character teacher. And the more that I'm willing to learn from him, but the first 10 years of my marriage, I was defensive. Like, I'm not messy. I'm just with the kids. I clean up at 3 in the morning. That's what I do. I was in that zone. But when things settled down and the house got a little quieter, and, I began to look towards him and not resist who he was and how he was. Oh, we have to get out on time because Tati wants us to. But instead realize he's helping me to learn things I would never learn on my own. Then my defenses went down. I felt proud of myself for learning. And yesterday, he actually did the opposite for me to learn from my kind of flexibility because he was at the hospital with my mother-in-law, and he was there the whole day, and I packed him up food because it turned out he would be there for the night, and I made it just like he likes it, and I put in the snacks, and I was like wife extraordinaire, and I packed it up, and I had his coliseum to fill in for the overnight, and I got there and I had left the dinner at home on the counter. Ah, he still had the snacks that I had put in another bag, but no dinner. He had a soup I had picked up on my way. And I just sat there and I was so humbled because we made no deal about it. Like, this is unheard of for him. If you care about someone, put the dinner in the bag, is how his mind works. He was so flexible about it, but also it gave me again the chance to kind of ponder that this other person, this amazing man that I live with, he has so much to teach me, especially in the places that would trigger me or be different than me. I'm actually a person who could leave the dinner on the table if left to my own devices. So, just to summarize,
it's
I
so
think you got the summary, but just like if you get this about your partner, it's going to be so much more interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny because my husband has a really good sense of humor. And a lot of times his sense of humor will be like a little bit sarcastic or, like, not my taste. But anyway, with the times, I'm getting used to it and I'm appreciating it because it's smart humor. It's not like garbage humor, right? He's very wise. He's very, above the thing. So his jokes are also like play on words or something really cute and smart. He'll rewrite words for like from a song, like a kid song, and like make a point about something. And I'd be like, oh, you're ruining the song for me, things like that. And the other day, I was rewriting the song. I was just sitting there, I think it was Chai Chai Chai, Am Israel Chai, right? And I just said, I was like, out of the thing, I'm like, by going to the festival or whatever of songs, right? Like back then in those days, and sending her to sing like Chai Chai Chai, it was
Yeah.
basically like in your face, we didn't die. And I'm thinking of like the war now and all that stuff. I was just like, so I just sang it and sort of like it rhymed and it sounded really good.
Mhm.
And he's like, turns around and says, "This is crazy. After all these years, I'm learning to be such a bitter person and I'm refining my character because of you and thanks to your niceness. And instead, you're getting more and more sarcastic." And it was just, first of all, it was really nice to hear that he thinks he's refining himself thanks to me, because he's really been, it's amazing to watch someone throughout the years sort of being more and more refined, which is really fun. But to get credit for that feels really nice. And I say it all the time to him because we have the same exact, like, it's almost copy paste, right? He's the one who teaches me time management. He's the one who teaches me how to stay on top of things. It's only thanks to him that the house is actually still standing. And I thank him for that all the time and I give him credit. So for him to turn around one day and randomly say, "Oh, you helped me refine my character and I helped you ruin your character," right? It was like very
That's an
funny.
awesome moment.
Yeah, but I really appreciate that you saying this because, you were saying before attitude of gratitude, right? And I think, a while back, I sat myself down with a journal and I said, I want to be grateful for all the things I didn't have and I have now, right? Like all the things I prayed for and like how they came out, how they worked out. So I went back in time and I remembered myself as a, young adult praying so hard. I want to live in Israel. I want to be married to a rabbi. I want to have like a really beautiful, Jewish home. I want to radiate light, right? Those were like the things I was praying for. And when you're that age, and people see like these like young 20-year-olds or whatever, like, oh, you don't really know anything about life, or whatever. It's like, no, 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 they really know, right? Like all these
Mhm.
teenagers, they
Yeah.
know, they know what they
Mhm.
want, they know what matters. They are not in La La Land at all. And I learned now, like as a old lady, I quote unquote, I did use my fingers to say quote. Now that I look at these teenagers and at these young adults, I have so much respect for them because I remember myself at that age and the things that mattered to me. So anyway, I wanted all these things and I prayed for them so hard and I just wanted it to all work out. And I'm looking back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like everything I asked for, but better. Everything I asked for,
Yeah.
but better, right? I
Yes.
live in Israel. I married a rabbi. He is way beyond anything I could have asked for. I totally won the lottery. But do you know how long it took me to appreciate that? Do you
Mhm.
know how long, like even moving to Israel and you're like all the trials and tribulations of moving all the time? I think we moved like 13 times, right? Like
Wow.
we had a lot of moving and all the drama and all the stuff and all the things that we had to go through. And and also just in my marriage, like, oh yeah, I can turn around and be like, oh, he's, jackpot of all husbands. But there was a long time where I was like, I totally lost out. Something went off. And it took me a while to appreciate what I got. So I think it's really impressive to be able to see the big picture because it's always the long game. It's always the bigger the bigger
Yeah.
expansion of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Wow. So beautiful that you took the time to notice it.
Oh, it changes your life. One time you do that exercise and you'll never be able to go back, right?
Mhm.
Because, yes, gratitude about like, oh, I have cups, I have water, I have running electricity, like we have Zoom, we're actually, live, all these great things we could be grateful for. And it's just like, okay, you forget the next day, right? Because there's just so much, so much. But
Yeah.
when you think back to the things that you wanted so badly and the emotion involved, like really get there and remind yourself how it felt, the pain, the pain that you had from not having that, from not reaching that, from thinking that it's impossible. Right? Like, how am I going to end up there? How am I going to find,
Yeah.
like, I'm going out with all these guys and they're all so not right, you know?
Mm.
Like there has to be somebody. And then God knows exactly what he's doing, orchestrating everything, coordinating everything, just running the world. And you have to trust that he knows better and he's getting you there. And that's really, really powerful. It's powerful for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I used to be a curative director, and I remember speaking to the young adults, telling them I was sharing my story with them of my near-death experience. And I told them that everyone must be about tshuva. Everyone must be like, born again, returning to God. And some people, they come to it because they grew up in a secular way and then they find God. But somebody who grew up religious, they also must have a kind of like a moment of awakening, which usually is after some kind of devolvement of a part of their life. And then they have to come to know God in a way that's personal to them, like in order to own it. And I feel like you're saying the same thing with marriage. Like the beginning is okay, you got married, but then there's stage two, which is choosing to be married, choosing to love, choosing to see who you're with. And that's a whole nother, that's like next level. That
It is.
opens up new possibilities.
It is next level. And I think that one of the biggest things that helps women when they sign up to work with me is the commitment to want to make it work, because until you get off the fence you're still on the fence of like, I don't know, is it really possible to change? Is it really possible to make a difference? It's already so, too late. I don't know. It's not so bad. It's not bad enough and I need to do anything about it. Like there's all these concerns and thoughts and resistance to actually taking action, right? And the secret is just you have to know what you want. You have to know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then you're never going to get there, right? You're
Yeah.
just going in circles. But if you know what you want and it matters so much to you that you are willing to do whatever it takes, that's 80% of the work. Like then they sign up and they just have to learn the skills. They have to figure out the how. I'm holding them through it. We're going through it together. I've seen such amazing results and complete breakthroughs just from taking action, feeling ready and taking that leap. And it's just amazing. There was this one
Yeah.
lady. Can I tell you this story? Because it's just like phenomenal. There was this one lady who said she can't talk to her husband. She feels like she's walking on eggshells. He's a nice guy. He loves her, everything. But like, it's just so hard to communicate what she needs because, he's always criticizing and being negative and push back and whatever. And so she just like is very let go, let go. Just okay, cancel yourself out. Everything's fine. But how many years can you live like that? So after almost 30 years of going through life and kids and everything, trying really, really hard not to step on his toes, she commits to working with me and, finding her voice and finding ways of communicating differently. Oh my gosh. So I have the calm method that I teach, and she taught it to her husband. And then they started having meetings and they're using the calm method. Like I never had anybody teach her husband the calm method. It was always do it yourself and then come prepared. They sit down and do the calm method together on
Oh,
any situation that comes up. Could you imagine what
wow.
a breakthrough? Like she
Wow.
completely changed every part of her life because she was able to break through owning her voice and finding what she really wanted and really committing. I think this is just so powerful. And anybody who has the like you're on the fence and you're sort of balancing between life and death type of thing, right? Like jump, take the leap, because you're being called to, not because you have to, but because it feels good. It feels
Yeah.
good to have clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great call to action. Don't give up hope. Just take the action and things can get better.
Yes. Yes. Take action. I love that. I'm
Yeah.
very practical. I'm like, let's take action, people. Okay, so
Yeah.
because we're so practical and we want to come out with something, the listeners are being like, great, this is an awesome conversation. What do I do? How do I take the first step, do something little, move forward in my marriage right now where I am, whatever that is? What are you going to tell them?
Okay, that's a great question. Hi, listeners. So, one of the places that I feel that we can get stuck is that we don't understand men. And why don't we understand men? Because we're women. Same way as men don't understand women. It's like there's this textbook, and in order to understand the other, you almost have to reread the textbook every day because every day you're living in a totally different reality. So I feel like maybe we could share a few things about men, the male species, that will just help women to take the actions that they need. Okay.
Yeah.
So sound good? Okay.
I'm thinking of this textbook. I'm thinking like one of those magical textbooks that rewrites itself every 2 seconds because we're constantly changing and we're
Yeah,
so
right.
unique, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting. I was just teaching about feminine archetypes, and there was 11, the queen, the warrior, the lover, the it just so many, the wise woman, and accessing those pieces. Maybe I'll share a piece about that. And in psychology, for men, there's only four archetypes.
Of course.
And I thought this is so funny. Like I'm on 11 and that's four. There's like the king, the joker, the magician, and the hero. Anyway,
You know
um,
why? It's the same thing like as a graphic designer, we always laughed about this, there's like 23 colors that we can name, but like basically six that they can name,
right.
right?
It's
Because
so
things are just
funny.
more simplistic, and that in itself is a very male trait. It's just,
Yeah,
see
because it's
things.
practical and clear. Okay, so men, that's I really would like to think about what I want to share over here. Because based on our conversation, the first thing is to know that respecting a man is king. It's what they need. It's the same way we need to be cherished. You need to feel like you matter deeply to someone, that they miss you when you're gone, that they find you beautiful. Like your feminine self needs that. A man needs to be respected. And it doesn't matter how he's respected at the worst place, it needs to happen at home. And that means that as his wife, you want to be aware of that respect. And here's a few ways that it can come out. Number one, if he gives advice, solicited or unsolicited, like we were talking about, husbands who like just have ways of doing things, take the advice, take it and say thank you, and then do with it in the way that feels appropriate for yourself. But when the advice is given in the verbal exchange, just take it, just enjoy it. He's saying, here's a piece of my wisdom and knowledge. I want to take care of you and make things better. So just take it. That's an aspect of respect.
I
Okay.
love that. By the way, this reminds me of improv, right? We had a guest to talk about the skills in improv and how to use them in marriage. The rule number one, yes and, right?
Yeah.
Like don't resist it. Just say yes and tell me
Right.
more, right? Because
Good.
then you're
Exactly. There can be a you in it. It doesn't have to be like the woman you said who just like got quieter and quieter.
right.
But definitely the yes and.
Yes,
Okay.
I love it. Okay, so rule number one, respect by
You.
receiving the advice.
Amazing. Number two, a man is magnetized to where he is relevant. To be relevant is huge in a man's psyche. It means I matter. I'll go wherever I matter the most. And you want to be the place where your husband matters the most. Now, of course, Hashem made men to be givers, to be out in the world. They're going to find projects and do work, etc., that matters because they feel relevant. But if they feel only relevant at work and then they come home and they're just kind of like an addendum to bath time, it's not going to feel satisfying to him, and you will not have the partner that you want. So, going out of your way to make your husband feel relevant means asking his advice, keeping him in the loop, making him a priority when it comes to things like dinner, like Tati's here, or let's make sure that Tati gets his plate, and then the rest of the kids will get their food. If he's not relevant to your world because you are in mama world or in your career world, that has nothing to do with him, so much so that you've stopped talking to him about it, then you're going to you lose that, God forbid, not lose it, you can lose out on that magnetizing that automatically comes when a man feels, oh, here's where I have something to give, because he's naturally antenna seeking. Where do I give? Like my selfhood.
Mm.
That would be number two.
I have a story about this one.
Oh, I love stories. That
I
makes
love
it
it.
relevant.
I had a friend whose husband would always go straight from work to his either his mother or his sister or different people. Oh, they need my help to fix the air conditioner. Oh, they need my help to fix this. They need my help to do this and that. And she has a million things to fix, right? Like there is no lack of things to fix in her own home, but he's just never coming home straight from work because he feels so needed. And it's like she finally found out, like, what's going on? What is happening at your mother's house? Or what's happening at your sister's house? Well, I go, I fix the air conditioner. Meanwhile, she's making cookies. So she gives me some. And then I sit down to have some soup because there has to be, there happened to be soup on the. So there is something where he feels like he wants to be there, and they're talking to him and they're giving him the interaction that he deserves. He comes home and it's like, okay, hi, you know whatever, where this is where you automatically belong. So we're not doing anything special to make that. And it was a real eye opener for me. Exactly what you're saying, just make your husband relevant. And then you brought business into it, and because I'm a marriage coach specifically for women in business, right? For me, one of the biggest things is, can you talk to your husband about your business even though it's not his business, right? Can you bring him in to ask him for his strength, right? I had a question about my assistant, like, should I give her a raise? Should I not? I don't know if I could, manage the money, whatever. I'm like, my husband's a numbers person. He is so calculated. He's so good at this. Like, why am I breaking my head trying to think this with my emotions if I can just bring him all these stuff and like use him as the expert? So I came to him and I said, you're the expert on numbers and on thinking clearly. Instead of me going to an expert, paying money and getting feedback on this decision, I would love to hear what you have to say about it. He sat down, looked at the numbers, and said, yes, you should totally give her a raise, because if you had to replace her, blah blah blah, whatever, all the things. And I loved it. It was so good. It was so good. Now, does he have any idea what I do? Like, it's the funniest thing. He gets my emails and he responds back like, was this personal to me? Because he's on my email list, but I don't think he really understands what I do. But the fact that I can lean on him for different things that I know are his strengths are definitely an example of what you're saying. So those are just two examples. I love bringing examples to what you're saying, because
I
this is
think the
really,
examples are so helpful.
yeah. So we're talking,
Absolutely.
so number one, respect. Number two, make
Yes.
him relevant.
Yeah. And number three, prioritize intimacy. Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
So,
Do you have
right.
to say anything else?
I do. I think it's really important for women to know. I've just been teaching these archetypes like tiny bits now, but they're helping me so much to convey what I've been trying to convey to people about marriage and intimacy. So an archetype simply means like a universal pattern of behavior. So if you are in your mother archetype, then you're nurturing and selfless, etc. If you're in your queen archetype, then you are the boss lady and you are the CEO and you are powerful and you are clear. Okay. So each archetype has its light side and its dark side. So, like the queen can end up being controlling and vain, the mother can end up being like selfless, depleted, and martyred. Okay. Why is this relevant to us? Because Hashem gave women the ability, Sha'asani Kirtzano, He made us according to His will, which means we can move through our archetypes, through aspects of ourself with incredible fluidity. And it helps so much to know about that, because you'll have women who think like, I'm a mother, and they're staying in this like mother mode, which means I'm selfless, I'm just giving myself away, and the children need me, and the house needs me. And it's very, very difficult to transition to what we call lover, which is there's an us and I'm alive and I'm excited about life. I love life. And from that love or vitality comes this desire for intimacy or this openness towards intimacy. But I noticed that women, and I'm not talking badly about women, I happen to have had a very powerful training from my mother in womanhood. God bless her. She should be well. She's really, I could talk so many things that she's taught me and continues to teach me. But I saw about my mother, I watched her transition because my father would work throughout the night. And so her transitions were like she's mother till 6:30 and then he would come home and like she was always like shifting roles to accommodate his presence, or now I'm being a wife and now I have all this, but then he was away at the hospital for 12 hours, so then it was like party time. I watched her move into these spaces and she was able to access her womanhood. So, just to summarize, it is possible for you to access other parts of yourself that exist within your womanhood. And you need them for your marriage and you need them for your vitality. If you stay in career woman all the time, you're going to be an unpleasant person. If you stay in mother all the time, you're going to be an exhausted person. If you stay in lover all the time, you're going to be a needy person because everything is about your husband. Okay. But you have the ability to notice where I am and what do I need to do to transition. Do I need to take a shower, do self-care, daven, meditate, clean the house, call a friend, get pumped up? Wear something else. And that's the call of a woman. That's why Ishes Chayil is like, it doesn't just say she's so nice to her kids. It says she's a rock star businesswoman. Her husband praises her. Like, there's so much to us. And it's a training on womanhood. I'll leave it at that.
I love that. And, we don't talk about intimacy much on the podcast because I do keep it to my intimacy masterclass. But I think it's really important for the listeners to know that this has to be a priority, right? And it's very important. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but no, but, right? This has to be a priority. And if it's not a priority, then you make it a priority. And if you can't make it a priority, then you should want it to be a priority, right? So, like my teacher once said, like, I love, every person has to always say, God, I love you. And what if I don't love God? Well, then you have to say, God, I want to love you, right? So, same thing. If I don't have it right now, I need to want it, right? Every single day. I want to want it. I want it. And until you get to a place where you're like, oh, wow, look at that. I've reached it. It's not going to happen overnight, but you have trainings. I have trainings. There's many trainings out there. You should put your intimacy first. Why? Because just like we said, marriage is the core of all of your life. Intimacy is the core of marriage, right? And so if you have to focus on one thing that's going to really move the needle on your marriage, it's your intimacy. And if you can do that, then you're going to see everything else fall into place.
Yeah.
So
It's
thank you for
true, Bat-Chen, but I think just saying like you should do that, it's almost like you should go build a building. So I'm very glad that you have a master class, and I'm very glad that I get to teach with my sister because it gets passed from woman to woman. And I think that's one of the biggest issues around intimacy is if you said before that people have this idea that someone has a picture perfect marriage, people also have that idea about intimacy that there's one way and it's somewhere. But intimacy is an evolution, it evolves as you evolve.
Yes.
So it's really, really important to get education about that and to get support and hope.
Yes. So, I don't mean when I say should, you should want it. I don't mean you should just make it happen like poof, right? I mean more like know that that's where you should seek support, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where we want to get educated because the more you know, the more you're going to know, and the more you're going to be able to do, and the more you're going to be able to fill up. We're talking about receiving abundance and opening ourselves up as the container for all that, and expanding our vessel, and there's a lot of beautiful things that we can discuss on a spiritual level, and it really comes through physical, right? And there's something really, really powerful about that connection on a physical level, right? Because if we're all the time up here in our heads, when we get back into our bodies, and we can actually experience experiences, then they're going to change us in a much more deep way than if we're just talking about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. So, number 4.
Oh, I was only going to do three. I can do
Oh,
the fourth. I actually have a program coming up I would love to tell your listeners about.
go for it.
Yeah. So, what happened with me is that I have been blessed to do a lot of healing work with a lot of mentors, and all the time I teach students, I get the benefit, and I'm changing and growing and changing and growing. And then guess what? October 7th happened. And like you, like everybody, when that happened, everything changed for me. Every single thing changed. And the way that I approached healing changed, the way that I approached God changed, and my heart changed, my neshama changed. I think this is the same for all of us. So, right around that time, as I was doing different types of work, like I mentioned, the archetypes was one of the types of work, very interesting new works, a lot of work with gratitude. I overheard this conversation between two teenage boys. And this one boy, maybe he was around 20, had gone out on an excursion, on an adventure to a bar from kid. And he said, I want to check it out. When am I going to go when I'm 40 or never? Like, I'm curious and I really want to see what it's like over there. So he went on a Saturday night and he spent some time at the bar, saw some people, very interesting. Next week, which is when I intersected with him and his friend were talking. And he said, I really want to go back. Like, twinkle, twinkle in the eye. I want to go back. And his friend looks at him and says, the best version of yourself doesn't go to the bar. And he said, oh, shoot. Like, let's go for pizza. And I heard it, Bat-Chen, my heart opened, like a new door opened, this longing, the best version of myself. Like, what if I had even more clarity on that? What if I had a friend who could help hold me accountable? What if like I was vibing and living with that, like that inner joke? I call it an inner joke. It is a joke. Like the best version of myself doesn't do that. Doesn't mean I don't want to, doesn't mean I'm not lazy, doesn't mean, and then to celebrate it, to celebrate the not going to the bar instead of it being like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I wanted to go, or oh, shoot. It was just a moment that I watched that Hashem arranged for me that was massive. So a bunch of things happened, and I ended up creating the Best Version of Yourself program. And it is starting on February 27th. And the basic format is 4 months. And each month we're going to be focusing on something else. In the first month, we're going to be focusing on all this inner work, getting to know yourself. The second month is getting connected to your body, your heart, your soul. Third month is relationships. Fourth month is life mission. But these are topics that I always used to teach on, but I feel, and you could tell me if you feel like this too, I feel like in this new era of bitachon, trust in God, it's a new type of healing. It's what I'm calling happy healing. Healing doesn't have to hurt. So this is the program, and each month is going to have a live event, live online and live in New York, a live healing event because I want to have fun. The best version of myself is actually a very fun person, and I lost her for a while, and like she's making a comeback. So if anyone would like to hear more about that, they can reach me at rivkamalka.com, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, I
And
love it.
yeah,
I love
you
it.
do? Oh,
You
I'm so
said
happy. I'm so happy you love it.
I see your smile, I see your radiance. I'm like, yes, everybody go sign up. I want to tap on what you said about, healing, positive healing. That's actually what I really leaned into very early on because I'm a very positive person. And one of my coaches was all into like, let's go into the shadow and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not doing that. I don't mind if things come up to me and I need to work on them and, send them back with a happy heart, but I am not going down there. I don't need to, right? There's a reason why they're in the basement. They're like, God is keeping them nice and safe somewhere else. And so I early on, positivity was is one of my values, right? I'm very practical, I'm very integrated, and I'm very positive. And I love that, that we can really heal from a place of happiness and joy and abundance, right? A lot of people have this belief that in order to connect to God, you have to lack, you have to connect to the, pain, you have to something or rather. It's like, what if we can just connect to God from this place of full hearted, amazing, just joy and I don't know, exuberance, like just the ability to shine and let it take over. Like, oh, that's big, right? And
Yeah,
that's
it's
that has been
good.
my mission. So
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I'm loving that, because that's really the redemption. Redemption is, leaning into the positivity, leaning into the light, leaning into the things that make you have fun, right?
Yeah.
We all lost ourselves, like no questions about it. And I love
Um,
it that you're reconnecting to the best version of yourself.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you for getting it.
Yeah, I totally love it. And I think it's so awesome how God orchestrates things like that, where you can, really listen in on what's going on behind the scenes of someone's life.
Mhm.
And I'm really, really grateful for that friend who told him that very strong message. If it would have been someone else, it would have gone completely differently. So I think we all have to appreciate the people in our lives that are there for pushback, sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's going to be your husband and someone who's close to you is going to be like, oh, I don't know, that's not really the best version of you. And we have to be okay with that. We get to really receive that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying, like bring it into regular life. And that's what got me excited. Like if someone criticizes you or if you feel criticized by your husband, it's a bad feeling. But if you have it within your dialogue that we are all, me and you, we both are into being the best version of ourselves, then it's a kind of a fun pump up. Not that you can be controlling about another person's decisions. You got to be careful about that, but it's fun. I actually had a great experience. I was in the supermarket and I was trying to go to the, line that moves the fastest, the register person that moves the fastest. And I was taking my stuff out of the cart and I'm noticing, wow, it's going down the conveyor belt so fast. So I look up at the cash register person and it is a young frum guy, a religious guy, which usually it's not. Usually it's not a Jewish person necessarily at the counter. It was an unusual employee. And I said to him, like, you are really fast. And he said, wow, thank you for noticing. I really try. He said, there's not that much that I can do when I'm doing this job. It's not my favorite place to be that I landed up in this job, but I try to make myself challenges. So I try to go as fast as I can. So I was kind of sneaky, but I was like still delighting from these other teenage boys. So I kind of tried it out. And I said, oh, so you're being the best version of yourself. And he was like, yes. Oh my gosh. It was so, it landed so like boom. It was a learning experience for me because what an incredible person this is that he didn't want to be in this job, but standing there in a way that nobody knew about, he was being the best version of himself, which was to do the job well, effectively, and fast. It's a great inspiration for me.
Yes.
And it
That's
reinforced this idea.
very much, I think of Joseph when I think of that. He ended up anywhere he ended up, all these jobs that I'm sure he was not looking forward to doing, right? And being down in jail and being up here and being down there, like anywhere that God put him, he was working to be his best self.
Yeah.
And that's inspirational because how often do we just get to complain about the situation? Like we are fighting reality. It's not supposed to be this way, and what was God thinking and blah, blah, blah. And we can really take it the extreme opposite of where this guy was. And really imagine if you could just be the best version of yourself right now. And you're saying, these very recent stories. This morning, I had such a hard time with my kids going out of the house. Like, just get out already, I'm like, I don't want to wear shoes. I don't want to wear a coat. I don't, all the things. I'm just like, okay, so I'll hold your shoes and I'll hold your coat and we're just going, right? And as I'm walking up, I was like, okay, this is where I need to be right now. This is where I need to be right now. So, what's the point of losing my patience? What's the point of, and let me just give you the background story. Yesterday, I did lose my patience.
Oh,
So, I didn't want to do that again, right? Because I
wow.
already knew what it felt like. Like, I've already tried that, done that, not
Yeah,
really excited about it. Let
yeah.
me see if I can try something else. And I realized, yeah, it's so powerful to just be. I was like, okay, so I'll wait here by the tree and you guys
Wow.
will come. And then I walk to the next tree and I'm waiting for you, and they're all walking really slow and walking on the rocks and taking their time.
Wow.
What if I could just be?
Wow. You were the best version of yourself today.
I tried.
Yeah.
And
Oh
I
my
love I
gosh.
love that. I love that. It's really nice. And I like that there's accountability because like you said, having that friend tell you, you know, yeah, that's very helpful and very powerful.
Oh yeah. I mean, the way that I think, I feel like we don't just need accountability. And yes, yes to accountability. I'm not disagreeing with you, but to add on to that, I feel like work on ourselves is so important and so difficult, as you saw this morning, that we need an entire cheerleading team behind us. That's what I would want. Like my secret self would want, like go. And I think I know that there is a whole cheerleading team. They just happen to be in the heavens. And anytime I overcome something, like the whole team is like cheering me on. It's just like Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, all the four mothers, all the four fathers, all the angels, they're like cheering. And at the same time, if I could replicate that down here, that there's a team of people, the other women that are in the program that actually care that you didn't, that you were patient today. It's like, it's more fuel in your gas tank. And right now we need fuel every single day. So yeah, more people, more fuel. So it's
I
exciting.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, great. So you guys go check out her program if you
Just
want to.
contact me on my website because the program's on a different website, but
Great.
rivkamalka.com.
RivkaMalka.com. Make sure you go check that out. If you'd like to check out my coaching, connectedforreal.com/coaching. You can find out all the details there and schedule a free discovery call. It's really fun. We go really deep and we find the roadmap to where you want to go. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you so much for being here. This has been such a fun conversation. I love that we can just go with the flow and, see where it takes us because it's not where I was planning on going, but I love I love it.
Ah, yeah, this was a good plan to not have a plan. No, we had a plan. It just we didn't. This is like how I look at recipes. I look it up and then I forget to look at it while I'm cooking. I'm like, oh, those are good, like good cookies. I think that's what we did. We had a plan.
We had a
And
plan and then God led us to the actual plan, which is always the best way to do it. So
yeah,
I
thank
say
you.
if you're not having fun on my podcast, then you're not doing it right. So I really hope you had a good
Ooh,
time.
okay. I like that. And I didn't realize that you're still doing one-on-one coaching because I'm more familiar with your podcast. So kol hakavod with that. If anyone is out here just listening in about marriage and you want that, then you have an address. And that's not a small thing, but someone just actually emailed me like, I don't know where to find marriage coaches. Like, who are they? Where are they? It's a small genre of people that are equipped and willing to get into the heart of marriage because it is so, so tender. So thank you.
Yeah. And you know what I love when I focused my energy on marriage and business, that intersection, right? Of like, how do you have a really good marriage that supports you and your passion and your business and your, going and your go-getterness, right? And on the other side, like how do you create a business that supports your life where you're not overworking and you're not burning out and you're not, just completely all over the place. that intersection is so critical. And when I started talking about it, I became the expert because no one else was. Like, there's
Mm,
not a single other person who's talking about that intersection. You
right.
have
That's your sweet spot.
hundreds and thousands of women whose marriage is so important to them that they're not willing to go out of their way to shine because they don't want to pay a price with their
Mhm.
marriage, right? And so they're holding themselves back. And that's a really bad recipe for disaster, because then you're just feeling deprived of shining, right? Like, you can't
Yeah.
do that to yourself for too long, right? And I found that you're either using your marriage as an excuse not to grow your business, or using your business as an escape because you don't feel as comfortable in your marriage. And both those things are not where you want to be, right?
Right.
And anytime you feel that your marriage and your business are pulling you apart, you know you need to realign. You know that you need to get them all back. Gather the troops. Let's move it up. Like, really align, because there's a lack of alignment there. And
Yeah.
that's what I love to focus on. So definitely, I have 4 pillars. You guys know that from the podcast: God, marriage, business, and you. And people come to me for all 4 pillars. So either God baggage, when it comes to, you should have known better. This marriage is not the marriage I was supposed to go into, or what were you thinking about this? A lot of God baggage is behind that. Marriage, obviously, right? And then business, how to streamline, how to systemize, how to make it work, because I am not naturally good at it, right? I thought I was not consistent. I thought I wasn't organized, but I found what works for me, and I'm able to teach that to my students and my people, my friends. And that's fascinating. And then you, as your whole self, how do you expand your vessel? How do you make more space so that you don't have to put anything down and take anything off your plate, but just create more space? Get a bigger plate, just allow yourself to have it all. No, not without having to pay a price with anything, because God doesn't want you to pay a price. Really, ideally, if everything is for God's sake, then there is no reason why you need to pay a price,
Yeah.
because God wants you to do it all.
Yeah. We can be in
So,
balance and harmony and do the things we're meant to do, and it can be enjoyable. Work,
yes,
but enjoyable. Yeah.
yes. And I love that you just gave me, like, oh, that feels so nice. Rivka Malka says you should work with me.
For sure. It's your gift. You worked hard for this gift, and I really believe in coaching. I think it's like one of the most powerful gifts out there. So if you're doing this and you get this terrain of marriage and business, then like yeah, I say go work with Bat-Chen.
Yes, go work with me. Yay! Oh my gosh, you guys, I
Looking
love
for
you
ways.
all. Yes. I love you all. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to be connected for real.